everybody today. Hope everyone out there is having a good day or good morning and ready for the weekend. Just so you know, quick update before we get started. We released next week's schedule for Ocean Stories. It's on the website now. We've got some really awesome talks coming up next week. We've got Jack Fishman, one of the community outreach officers from Project Aware, talking about their work with divers and the projects they're involved in, the conservation projects they're involved in all around the world. We've got Martin, one of the founders of Coral Guardian, stopping by. Marisol is going to talk about the Mesoamerican barrier reef and their research with it and all that, and the conservation of it. We also got a really special talk from one of our own Team Ninja members, Marta Palacios, who's going to be joining us to talk about the mobula rays of Baja and the research that she's currently working on with her PhD, as well as the conservation projects, working with fishermen in Baja and everything to help protect the mobulas. So really, really cool stuff coming next week. In the next few days too, we'll be releasing the last week of May too. That'll be coming online too. So tomorrow, we're going to wrap up Cetacean Week with a special Dive Ninjas Whale Defender Conservation course. This is a course we had originally created for our Whale Defender program here in Cabo San Lucas. It teaches you about whales and how you can protect them. It kind of covers all sorts of things, everything from evolution, biology, threats, conservation programs, their complex history with humans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of information. Mario, who is the State Director of Sea Shepherd for Baja California, he's going to be joining us tomorrow to teach the course with us. He's a marine mammal biologist too and all that. So really, really cool project tomorrow. If you got nothing to do on a Saturday morning, definitely something to check out. Spaces are limited. There's a few spots left though, so feel free to sign up today. And now today we've got a very special guest. We've got Hiram, who's the director of MMAPE. Their team is doing incredible work here in Mexico with cetaceans. Not only just research, but also working hard to protect and save Mexico's cetacean species all over in Baja and different areas. So how are you today, Hiram?
Hi, Jay. I am fine. Thank you so much for your invitation.
Oh, no, thanks for joining us, man. It's great to have you here and everything like that. So without further ado, guys, I'll pass you over to Hiram. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick so you can take over.
Okay. Okay, well, we can begin?
Sure. Share your screen and we'll get started.
Well, good morning, every one of you. Thank you so much for joining with me in this little trip to the world of cetaceans. So I begin and I keep with the presentation. Well, challenge and successes in the conservation of the Mexican cetaceans. Well, how Jay said, my name is Hiram Rosales Nanduca, and I am professor of the Autonomous University of Baja California in the Fisheries Engineering Department. And I am the responsible of the marine mammal, well, not marine mammal, marine megafauna and fisheries research program. Well, first, a little context. In this brief talk, my intention is to talk with you a little bit about the diversity challenge and success regarding the conservation of cetaceans that live in the Mexican Pacific. So, well, it's very likely that all of you can easily identify whales and dolphins in the ocean. But in antiquity, this was not so easy or so evident like is now for every one of us. Yeah? The main reason the whales and dolphins together are now at cetacean is because the name came of the Greek Cetus, and Cetus means marine monster. So the ancient people think that these really big animals are really dangerous and they hit and destroy complete ships. But really, they are marine giant monsters? Well, not really. Who are the cetaceans? The cetaceans are a group of different animals that is very probably that every one of you recognize. Cetaceans are divided in two different groups or two big groups. The baleen cetaceans are that you know the blue whales, the fin whales, the humpback whales, the great whales. But also we have the other big group that is the odontocete cetaceans. The difference is the presence of baleens of the presence of teeth. So But also the cetaceans have another group that are less common or less recognized for the people in general. These include the big whales, the sperm whales with 3 species, the porpoise, include the Vaquita, the monodontids that include narval and beluga, and the dolphins. So the cetaceans are more different than many people know. Well, personally, cetaceans look fascinating to me because they are mammals and they require breathing air just as we do. So the cetaceans are really different. We can find species like the most biggest animals in the history of the land, like in the earth, sorry, like blue whale, that the most biggest animals reach 33 meters, that are approx like 108 feet. But also we have small animals like Vaquita that reach only 1.5 meters and 50 kilograms. And they use different habits in the ocean. But well, where do they live? Where marine mammals and particularly cetaceans live? Well, cetaceans live in all the world oceans, through the tropical to the polar waters, and in the coastal to the oceanic waters. Even in rivers, like the biggest rivers in the world, like Amazon River, like Yangtze River, like some rivers in the India. But also, is this just because they live in such a large space that they are not free from threats, and in different parts of the world they face different risks. These threats can be different and often shared between different countries, including Mexico. The colors in these maps indicate the degree of threatened of marine mammals. The green indicate less threat, and the red, higher threat. So you can see that in different parts of the world, the cetaceans and other marine mammals face different risks or different threats. But also in this map, we can see that exists many species of cetacean that we are classified like data deficient. This means that we don't have enough information to define if they are in risk or they are not in risk. So this is really important because it's supposed that these are really big animals and we don't have enough information. So we can dimension that difference that exists between different groups. If big animals we don't know, what can weight of the small animals. But well, what happened with cetaceans in Mexico? First, in general, the scientific community considers that there are 90 species of cetaceans. So with more than 40 species in Mexico, the cetacean diversity here represents approx 45% of the world diversity of these animals. This is really, really marvelous for Mexico. This is a really significant because the seas of Mexico occupy only just of 3% of the total surface of the whole ocean. Also, Mexico is one of the few countries in the world with an endemic species of cetacean, the Vaquita marina. Here is the Vaquita. But well, another examples of the great diversity of cetaceans in Mexico include the charismatic humpback whales, who are famous for their striking acrobatic surface behaviors, but also great whales that are famous because they carry out the breeding and calving activities in the coastal lagoons of Baja California. And sometimes, if people is lucky, they can touch them. Or also the fin whales that have a resident population into the Gulf of California, or the common dolphins that come from pods of thousands of animals, or the orcas, which for reasons beyond scientific arguments, usually cause curiosity and admiration in people. So the diversity of this group in Mexico is really wonderful. And this is very special to the people in this country. Okay. But we have many challenges, particularly and urgent is the case of Vaquita marina, but also we have other situations to which we must pay attention. For example, we have many species that with data deficient. We have another endangered species like the North Pacific right whale, or we have a new or different threats like climate change, interactions with fisheries, habitat degradation, bad tourist practice, and others. But well, according to the International Union of the Conservation of Nature, we can classify species with relation to different biological criteria in the following categories: data deficient, low concern, need treatment, vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered. So in these maps, we can see that in Mexico, in the Pacific Ocean, we have many species, at least the category of endangered or critically endangered. So this is important because we need to put attention in all these species and in all these areas. But also we have maybe the most challenged species at these moments, not only in Mexico, if not in all the world, is the Vaquita. Vaquita is the world's most threatened marine mammal in the world, and is an endemic to Mexico, and is only found in the area known like Upper Gulf of California. In this panel, in the yellow square, you can see the small area in that Vaquita survived now. And this picture for me is really, really important because before 2010, we don't have any good picture of these animals in the ocean. But this is possible that many people think that doesn't exist. Vaquitas could be defined as shy and avoid boats. That is why they are really difficult to see. You need that the ocean looks like a pool, have high-powered binocles, very experienced observers, and most important, be watching the right place in the right time. And if you are lucky enough, perhaps you are lucky enough to see that little animal for an instant. Many people, maybe for these characteristics, deny the existence of this species, perhaps due to the difficulty involved in observing them in the ocean. The vaquitas watching in this video were recorded in September of 2018, and I was fortunate to be there and watch them live in their habitat. And I also had the opportunity to live and experience beyond the scientific part and understand how complex is the social situation in San Felipe. The history of the population decline of the vaquita is summarized in this image. At the 1997, the estimation says that exists 567 vaquitas. 11 years after of this, the half of the population were lost, only 245. In the next 8 years, only 20% survived, 59 was the estimation. And in 2006, 1 year after of this, the half of population was lost. And in 2 years after of this, again, near to the half of population, only 19. And the last estimation was the last year, and is between 4 and 15 animals. It's really, really critical situation. Well, this image could be gruesome, but the vaquitas, the greatest threat to the vaquitas' existence is the presence of the gillnets within the ranch, because these gillnets are used to fish the totuaba. And the totuaba is this fish that is very similar in size than vaquitas. And for this is a really dangerous activity for the vaquitas because they can be trapped in these nets and they need to breathe because, how I said, they are mammals. And if they can breathe, they die. But not all are bad news. And thanks to passionate and committed people who love and understand the importance of caring about nature, is that the vaquitas still swim in the ocean. Particularly, Museo de la Ballena and Ciencias del Mar people and Sea Shepherd Conservation Society are working very hard in the last years to stay live this species in San Felipe. in the waters of San Felipe. Museo de la Ballena, Sea Shepherd, and their passionate members have been fundamental in recent years for the subsistence of the Vaquita. Without them, my personal opinion is that Vaquitas would have been extinguished some years ago. This last year, these people really are worked very hard to help the Vaquita and include Mexican and people of all of the world. And thanks to all these people and organizations, is that there is still hope for this species. And we face the enormous challenge of proving that we are capable of coexisting with nature. Vaquitas still survive, and their livelihood could be a wonderful trigger that inspires not only Mexico, but people around the world about the importance of caring biodiversity. This is a calf, and this is a mon, and this is a nice history because this Vaquita I've been watching in the last 3 cruises that we make in San Felipe. Wow, I know that we have few time, but I think that it's important to talk about another challenge before moving to the positive history. So I present to you the North Pacific right whale, that is the second most endangered cetacean in the world. This is the North Pacific right whale. In the 19th century, the hunting whaling make an estimation of the 30,000 animals, but the actual population is unknown. Some people think that exceeds only 100 animals. And in gray, you can see the distribution area of this species that includes the west coast of the Baja California. Well, the activities that human beings carry out have different impacts of nature, and cetaceans are not the exception. So in this map, you can see with different colors, blue is low impact and red is higher impact of the human activities in all the oceans of the world. And one of the good news is that the Mexican Pacific has a low risk for this species. But also we have another activities that put in risk this species, not only in Mexico, if not in all the world, particularly competition with fisheries, bycatch, and an entanglement with fishing here, noise pollution, and particularly the Navy activities are really dangerous for many cetaceans. Noise pollution and chemical pollution include the habitat degradation in many aspects. Oh, I don't know what happened. Sorry. But, well, not all are bad news. We have very good news also. Many species or populations are growing, or at least are stable in all oceans of the world, and particularly in the Northern Pacific, that include Mexican Pacific, more than a half of the species are increasing, and only 10% of the mammals in this area are decreasing in the population numbers. Successes. Particular examples of success include humpback whales. Humpback whales in the North Pacific number less than 1,000 at the end of the commercial humpback whaling in 1960s decade. Actually, more than 21,000 and in Mexico, more than 6,000 live in this area. For this, according to the USN, the status of this species is low concern. Humpback whales are an excellent example of what international cooperation can achieve. In particular, the humpback whales that breed and kill in Mexico come from the waters of the west coast of the United States, Canada, and Alaska. Without a comprehensive protection, including both breeding and feeding areas, the recovery of these migratory species would not have been achieved. And thank you to the protection is that now we can enjoy of these animals and all their behaviors that are really, really amazing, like reaches, sinks, jumps, tails, and competitive groups. But also we have another good example, the gray whales. The gray whales were on the verge of extinctions, but thanks to the whaling moratorium, the measures implemented in the breeding areas located in the coastal lagoons of Mexico, and to the measures taken in the feeding areas of this species in the Arctic seas, this species has recovered remarkably. They was considered near to the extinction in the 1950s decade, but now we have close to 30,000 animals living in the North Pacific, and the actual status is low concern. And they are very good example for the conservation in Mexico because they mate and breed in Mexican waters, in the Calvin Lagoons in Baja California. For this and the measures taken in the feeding and the calving areas, this species has recovered remarkably. And now this species has become one of the main ambassadors for the protection of the oceans. And thanks to the friendly behavior of these whales towards people, now many people around the world have been inspired by the recovery history of this species, supporting whale watching tourists as a sustainable alternative for the care of natural resources and the economic development of local populations. This is an experience that you need to live at least one time in your life. If you never seen or you never are be close of a whale, you need to come to the lagoons, calving lagoons of the great whales. It's a really, really wonderful experience, and it's an irreplaceable experience that you can live only in these places. They were calling the devil fishes because they attacked the ships when the whalers tried to hunt the calf of these whales. And now they are recognized like the most friendly whales in all the world. So our future and the future of nature depends enormously on the decisions that we make in the years to come. If we are able to understand ourselves as part of nature, we will have taken a great step towards achieving a more harmonious relationship with nature. Whales and dolphins, as a charismatic species, can help us to communicate to society the importance of nature and especially the dependence that we have on it. To have a future as humanity, we must first be able to offer a future to the species that exists with us in this, our only home. At least for me, the most important signal that the nature continues working is the presence of the calf of the whales in the oceans. Well, here is my contact. This is my mail, and this is the link to our Facebook page of the MAPE. So thank you so much to J. Clue for the invitation, and thank you for your attention. If you have questions and I can help you, I am here to try to do it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. That was an incredible presentation. Some of that drum footage is just mind-blowingly beautiful. The picture of Vaquita at the end of the calf is just such a beautiful shot. Really, really, really beautiful. Awesome. So guys, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can throw them in the Q&A box and we'll read them out to Hiram right now and see what we got. Cool. We've got a few coming in already. So let's start with Carrie. Carrie says, thank you so much for your talk. I've learned so much. I heard recently that humpbacks are seen in groups of over 100 and that this is a new behavior. Is this true? And what would be the reason?
Well, 2 years ago, in the east coast of Australia, or at South Africa, I can remember, was detected a really concentration of humpback whales. That is the first time in the history that are recorded. Was a very strange event, and it's supposed that many food for these animals, and for this they are close together. The humpback whales are a migrating species, so they have different behaviors during summer months in the north area and in the winter months in the tropical areas. In particular, in the feeding areas, they can form groups to hunt their prey. And the size of the group depends of the size of the school of prey. Hundreds of whales are strange, but happened 2 years ago, like I said you, and it's true.
That's amazing. I can't even imagine seeing that many humpbacks in one area. Like, that's just really
Yeah, for
amazing.
example, in breeding areas, competitive groups, the most biggest groups that I've been seeing someday was 20 animals fighting each other to try to mate with a female. So to watch big groups of this animal is one of the most wonderful experience in all the nature.
That must be incredible to see that many. So beautiful. Awesome. So then, okay, thank you, Carrie. So Megan asks, what specific species migrate from Mexico up to Southern California?
Well, for example, humpback whales, humpback whales that breed in Mexico came from different areas.
Mm-hmm.
The humpback whales in the North Pacific are divided into subpopulations. Exists the California, Oregon, and Washington subpopulation, the Canada subpopulation, and the Alaska subpopulation. The humpback whales that breed in continental coast of Mexico came primarily from California and Oregon, and the whales of Revillagigedo Islands and Hawaii Islands came from Alaska. Different species move between California and Mexico. For example, we know that blue whales moved to California in the winter months and came into the Gulf of California, particularly between La Paz and Loreto Bays. But also another whales move. For example, fin whales move between California and the west coast of Baja California. And another species can use this corridor. But something that happened is that we know really few about cetaceans in the west coast of Mexico, of Baja California. Very few studies, particularly with cetaceans. We know much more about pinnipeds, but not cetaceans. But at least blue whales, humpback whales, and gray whales use this corridor to move between north and the tropical areas.
Awesome. I think that's, for me, is one of the really incredible things about Baja, is just how many cetaceans and marine mammals you can find in this area. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Because it's really a small area, if you think in all the oceans of the world, but with a big concentration of the species and the number of the species, number of individuals of each species.
It's incredible. So Luca says, can you repeat the links to your social media? Great job. I'm going to just paste them into the chat for you, Luca. I'll put the Facebook in there right now so everybody can see the link to their Facebook page.
I can put again some moments.
Cool.
There is. If you look for MAPE with 2 M's in Facebook, MMAPE, MAPE, you can find us.
Awesome. Perfect. So then Megan asks, how many Vaquita are still in the wild?
The last estimation is between 15, or well, between 4 and 15 animals.
Wow. So
four animals, less than the fingers of my hand. 4 and 15 animals. It's a really complicated situation, but also we have some examples of species that were considered extinguished and they recovered. For example, the North elephant seal and the Guadalupe fur sea lion at the end of the 18th, of the beginning of the 19th century. The estimations say that only less than 20 animals stay in the life, and some of these species was declared extinguished, and now we have thousands of animals, thousands. It's a different situation because the pinnipeds can reproduce each year, and cetaceans is not common, but also we learned after of the whaling moratorium that some species, if have enough food, can breed every year, and they can have calves every year. So the hope is the last that we need to lose.
Yeah, crazy. Hopefully they can. It's really sad, you know, what's going on with them and everything. It's heartbreaking, you know.
Yeah, the Vaquita situation is really, really complicated. I was in San Felipe 4 times working with Museo de la Ballena and Sea Shepherd and CONAM and NOAA guys. And it's a really complicated situation because it's true that many fishermen don't believe that Vaquita exists. And they say that they work in the, like fishermen's many years, many decades, and never seen a Vaquita. And I think that this is true. I think that they are not lying. And I say that it's true because we use many, many people, maybe the best eyes in the world to look for cetaceans, very good platforms, very powerful binoculars, very experienced people, and we can use also technology like acoustic technology to try to identify the place where we have more possibility to watch the vaquitas. And only when we have the ocean like a pool without wind, we can find the vaquitas. Mm. And if you go down in the panga to try to follow the vaquitas, they breathe, but the swell don't leave you to watch. So it's really, really complicated. I am working with cetaceans for 20 years. And definitively, for me, is the most complicated species to watch in the sea. So for this, I say that it's a complicated situation because also the only activity in San Felipe is to relate to fisheries. So it's a social context, but also we have another big problem. Maybe the worst thing for the vaquita is the Chinese people that wants to the bleeders of the Totoaba. So it's not only a regional situation, it's a global situation because the bleeders of the Totoabas make a trip from Mexico to USA to China, or Mexico for another route to China. So the problem is that the only people that is under the eye of the authority or under the eye of the global community are the fishermen of San Felipe. And in San Felipe exists many fishermen that really, they only want to work. They don't want to kill the vaquita. But how the bleeder of the Totoaba is really expensive, sometimes $80,000 a kilogram. The drug cartels are there now. So many of the deaths of vaquita are not for fishermen and for people that wants to money, and people not necessarily are fishermen.
No. It's really complex and really sad at the same time. Going on to that, Jimena asks, why can't the vaquita population be recovered with like an aquaculture system or something like that?
Can you repeat, please, because a car passed here?
Oh, sorry. It's is there a reason the vaquita can't be recovered through like aquaculture or like with like essentially growing them, you know, anything like that?
Okay. Well, vaquita is a mammal, yeah, and the mammals, we have different behaviors, different necessities. The aquaculture works very well for some species, but particularly invertebrates or fishes. So some years in 2016, the CPR program, Conservation, Protection, and Recovery of Vaquita, tried to catch some vaquitas to put in some place, isolate place, and to mate, and after they recover and we have conditions in the ocean, they can be free. But doesn't work because vaquitas are really shy and really nervous. And this is not exclusive of vaquitas. Many species of mammals or other animals, for example, pandas take many years to breed in captivity because they need very, very special conditions. So with vaquita, it was impossible to be captive and try to do this because the nature and the shy and well, the nervous of this animal don't permit. So it's not possible to do some like aquaculture. And the only possibility is to try to keep clean the area of the vaquita, of the nets. And this is not impossible because the vaquita lives in a very, very specific area. They don't move of this area. And this is one of the most wonderful things that I think that we can find in cetaceans. Cetaceans have very different distributions. It's supposed that if you see the ocean, any barriers exist, but this is not true. The animals can detect these barriers or can detect the change in the ecosystems, in their habitats. For this, the vaquita stayed there. It's supposed that vaquita appeared in a glaciation time. All the earth was cold, and the waters for the existence of the species were retracted to the tropical areas. And after of this, in a degradation period, when the planet come back to normal conditions, some porpoise stay in the Gulf of California, and there is evolution in this place. But never after of this, never move, and they stay only in the upper Gulf of San Felipe. They can use all the Gulf of San Felipe. If the vaquita use all the Gulf of San Felipe, this problem doesn't exist because the totoaba is fishing in this area because they move to breed in this area in some months particularly. If the vaquita could be in other areas, the problem doesn't exist, but vaquita, for the biological conditions, need to be there. And this is the problem, that the vaquita can change their evolutionary pressures or the biological conditions very quickly. And the human activities are changed the habitats very quickly.
Wow. Very difficult then. Cool. So then Sarah says, great presentation. Is it allowed to swim with whales in Mexico?
Well, the activity of swim with whales doesn't permit with whales in Mexico. But it's important to make a difference. The name whales is not the same in Spanish that in English. Whales in Mexico is only for baleen whales. And in English, whales represent tooth and baleen whales. The difference is that English, a whale is an animal more than 4 meters that shape hydrodynamic shape. And for this, in English, you can have toothed and baleen whales. And in Mexico, the whales, las ballenas, are only the baleen whales. The baleen whales swim in Mexico. The baleen whales activity swim is not permitted. It's only permitted under particular conditions of research or to some documentary initiatives, but not for tourists. And with the other odontocets or other cetaceans like toothed whales is permitted. For example, now we have a situation that I think that we need to work quickly, that is the killer whale situation, because it's an activity that is growing but we don't have control about this. So it's important to take some control in this activity before was a chaos.
No, before it gets out of hand. I totally agree with you there. Definitely. These last few years, you're starting to see more and more sightings, and especially more near areas where there are a lot of tourists and everything like that. So it's becoming starting to grow, and it's be good to get ahead of that and get some sort of plan in place or something like that to help protect them and keep them safe, as well as to keep the tourists safe too, Awesome. So Remy asks, what is your favorite cetacean and why?
Well, I really like all cetaceans. I think about this question every time that I go to the sea to look for cetaceans, because I feel the same emotions that the first time. I love to watch breathe, to watch move, to watch making the things that these animals do it in the nature. But if I need to choose only one species, I think that choose humpback whales. And I can say you why. Humpback whales are very dynamic. Herman maybe said that was the most acrobatic species of whales in the world. And he has reason, because the humpback whales bridge, jump, sink, use the tail flukes, hit the water with the pectoral fins, and have one of the most, for me, maybe the most extraordinary behavior in the nature, that are the competitive groups, and that you can see many males fighting literally with hits and splash and between them to try to be close of a female and to mate. So if I need to choose only one species, I chose the humpback whales. But also I like so much many species. For example, I love pilot whales. Pilot whales for me are really wonderful species. Bottlenose dolphins. Many people don't like bottlenose dolphins because they are common. You can see commonly in the ocean. But I think that for this they are wonderful, because you can have a bad day in the ocean, and all the time they stay there for you, and they can take you a smile in your face. Also, I love killer whales, but also I love sperm whales. The sperm whales are wonderful. They are really big animals, very different to the others, and it's amazing that they can dive so deep. Big whales are the same. So I like, in general, I can say that I all marine mammals and all marine megafauna. Yeah.
All of them. Hard to pick one. Awesome. Yeah. So Jose says, thanks, Hiram, for your informative talk. Exactly what measures do groups like Sea Shepherd do to help protect the vaquitas?
Well, the most specific action that Museo de la Ballena and Sea Shepherd are doing is to remove the ghost nets. Ghost nets are the nets that some fishermen or some dealers or wherever person live in the ocean lose. They lose because they move, or the current was too strong, or they come back for any reason, and they stay into the water, and they are really bad for all the marine biodiversity. And the first and the most important action of these two groups are the remotion of the ghost nets. Of the active nets. Active nets are nets that are new, that are working, and ghost nets are nets that are abandoned. So they are moving literally thousands of nets in the past 4 years.
Awesome. That's incredible. I think the work that Sea Shepherd and them are doing out there in Museum de Ballena is just really, it's really incredible. I mean, especially the stuff they have to go through to be out there and everything like that. It's hard work, Awesome. So Sue asks, how does the team get good population estimates of the vaquita and other cetaceans, especially if there's only a few of them left?
Can you repeat, please? What?
She asks, how does your team get good population estimates of the vaquita or other cetaceans, especially if there's only a few of them left?
Well, I don't do it the estimation of vaquitas. The estimation of vaquitas was doing for a very professional team that includes Mexican and that includes an international team, and the leads are Mexicans. But basically, they use acoustic because, like I say, it's very complicated to watch the animals in the live in the sea. So we know that the vaquitas have sounds that have a specific frequency. And if you use hydrophones, you can detect the sounds. So these people put an array of hydrophones in the area of vaquita, and they can detect the clicks of the sounds of the vaquitas, and they can analyze across the time. So these methods are standardized with another species that you can follow more continuously, and you can detect the sounds also. For this, we know that we are hearing less and less and less vaquitas now. The first estimations were made with bigger sheep and strong binoculars, but the last estimations are using particularly the acoustic detection.
That's incredible. That's really incredible they can do that. Amazing. That's, I always wondered that too. Like if you had to just stay out there watching all the time, and then how do they know and everything? It's amazing they use acoustics. Awesome.
Yeah, because these animals dive very deep, and the eyes they don't use. They need to communicate, and they do use the clicks and another kind of sounds.
Awesome. So Barate asks, are there any threats to whales from the barnacles that grow on them?
Well, some barnacles or some another species that whales carry are even endemic of the species.
Wow.
Yeah. For example, the gray whales have allies and barnacles endemic of the gray whales. Doesn't exist in another animal or in another part of the nature. And the barnacles take advantage of the stay in the body of the whales, because the whales move in the water and the barnacles filter the water. So they eat and they don't move nothing. They use the moving of the whales. So in fact, if they are few in the body of the whale, the whales don't worry about this. But if they have so much, they can have complications about the hydrodynamicity. It's like a panga or like a boat. If you stay clean a boat in the deep, you can navigate very efficiently. But if you have one or two barnacles, it's okay. But if you have the floor full of barnacles, the move is not efficient. The same pass with the whales. But also, another example is humpback whales have barnacles in the pectoral fins, and looks like they use like weapons when they hit each other in the competitive groups. And if you see some humpback whales someday in the nature, the males, the males that compete have various scars across the body. And these scars are provoked by barnacles that are in the pectoral fins, and another males hit them. So also they can use, the barnacles use the whales to feed and to be safe. And the whales use the barnacles to use like weapons.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Next question we got. So Skylar asks, what was the first whale that had ever been recorded in history?
I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. Well, in the antique Greece, the people say that they are big animal monsters, because they pass in the water and they can watch a very, very enormous animal, but they don't know what they are. For this, they say at the beginning, they think that they are fish or they are monsters or another thing. But really, I don't know. I can say you what was the first. um, I think that the fish registers are the fin whales, and for this, the name is rorcual común in Spanish or common rorcual in English. Because in Europe, in the Mediterranean, was of the was of the most abundant species in this area many years ago, some centuries ago. And it's possible that this was the first whale that was, because the history has writing by the European people, no?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's very possible that fin whales or common rorquals, they are the first species.
Awesome. I find it amazing how the whales, like in the old days, that they thought they were these monsters and all these kind of things, and that newer research is starting to show that a lot of these things that they thought were sea monsters were actually just whales, and they just didn't understand it.
Yeah, and I can say another thing. For example, in Mexico, in the Cape Pains, you can find whales.
Yeah.
You can find dolphins and sharks. And it's possible that this information has been before of the European described first whale. For this, I'm not sure in the global history of humanity, if some people knows what is the fish register in all the history, but considering all the cultures, not only the European culture.
Yeah, I think that, and I find that we do, when we run our Gentle Giants expeditions in February and March, we take the guests to the paintings that are outside of Loreto, up in the mountains there in Branch. And we go there because the painting, when you enter the cave, the first painting is a whale. And I find it amazing that, you know, on the top of this mountain that is like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive just to get from the coast out to this ranch in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, these people had to walk so far from the ocean to get there. And the thing that they painted was this giant whale. And it's, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago. It's just beautiful, you know? Yeah. Incredible to see the connection they had with the sea and everything like that so many thousands of years ago. Really awesome. So Christine says, very heartfelt with the last video. It saddens me to see and hear how the vaquitas and the Pacific right whales are almost extinct. I never knew that noise pollution from the Navy ships affected the whales. Because of the rise in quantities of some of these animals, is it because Mexico has stricter guidelines to protect the animals, or what is causing the population increase?
Well, this work this graph that I present you, is a recent paper, was like 30 days ago, 1 month ago, and it's a recent paper, and they analyze the trends of many population of many animals, not only marine animals, not only marine mammals, and they detect that across the time, many species like humpbacks, like great whales, like northern elephant seals, Guadalupe fur seals, etc., are increasing the numbers. For this, we know that many species are increasing the numbers, but also we have another species that are declining. No, in Mexico particularly doesn't exist, or at least I don't know exists, Navy sonars or Navy exercise that affect to marine mammals, but in other countries, it's a question that is proved. In USA, for example, or in Spain. In Spain was famous like 1 decade ago, like 10 years ago, because many big whales, Cuvier big whales, were stranded, and when the people make the necropsy, they found the same of the dives. I forgot the word.
Like the eardrum, the blown hemorrhage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's supposed that marine mammals don't suffer this, but after of this finding, they learned that if they are big whales dive like 2,000 meters, and they can reach even 3,000 meters, and they are diving for feet, and in a moment they hear a very aggressive sound provoked for the Navy sonars or another kind of military proofs. They need to run out of this place. and very quickly maybe ascend, and this provoke the same symptomatology that the people that die.
Oh,
So it's very, very impressive. And now we know that this is a really big problem. Not particularly in Mexico, but I put there like a general context. Well, if some people want the link for the paper that I say to you, it's okay. I can.
awesome.
About the some days ago also, this same paper is very interesting because they use, if I can show the screen again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Look, I put the last. This is very interesting. What happened? Yeah, here you can see some species of marine megafauna that are recovering after of the moratorium of whaling or fishing on everyone. For example, in red, the humpback whales in Eastern Australia, that was 400 in the 1980s. Now we have more than 6,000 animals. No? But we have another examples like the sea otter here, like a dozen of animals. Now we have close to 3,000. Also the northern elephant seal here, only some dozens again. And to the 1980s, we have more than 10,000. And different examples, no? And this is really nice and very nice news for the people that love the oceans. This is an estimation of the time that different species needs to recover. Here we have whales, 14 to 16 years. Sea turtles, similar. Pinnipeds, 20 to 40 years. And for this is that I say you that the situation of Vaquita is not similar to Guadalupe fur seal or northern elephant seal, but it's possible. For example, the right whales in the Antarctica also have a very decimated population, less than 100 animals. And now we have more than 5,000 animals. So the successful possibilities exist. But first, we need to stop the bycatch of this species. So it's not impossible, but it's really, really complicated. And now particularly, we are worried because the COVID implicate that all the people that are working to remove ghost nets or active nets leave San Felipe. Now any ship of any organization is there. It's supposed that Navy guys of the Navy Mexican guys are working in this, but really I don't know if it's true or not because any people is there to confirm or retract this information.
And going on from that, actually, I'm going to just jump a question. I'll come back to another one. Sarah and Victoria asked kind of very similar questions about in Mexico, the vaquita is actually protected, but they're still being, exploited anyway illegally, correct?
The vaquita is protected. In fact, all the marine mammals in Mexico are protected, every one of them. But the problem in Mexico, and I think that is similar in other countries, is that the paper said one thing and the actions said a very different thing. We have many protected species of many protected habitats, but if we don't have conditions to the people in these areas, take food or save their families or take the necessary without affect the animals or the nature, all these papers doesn't matter because the people that lives there is the people that knows our necessities. So yeah, it's true. In Mexico is protected, vaquita and all the marine mammals, but the situation is many more complex than only make a declaratory of protection species.
Monitoring and enforcement and all these kind of things, and especially when you've got an animal like the totoba that sells for so much money, and you have such you know, like the cartels and these things involved in these illegal operations trying to take it to be able to sell it and everything and make the money off of it. It's not like they're really, you know, looking at the laws and saying, you know, like, hey, we would like to do that, but there's a law, so we won't do it. Like they just go and do it anyway, you know?
Yeah, for example, I can say you that when I working with humpback whales or another kind of whales or dolphins, I pick up the panga, we go to the ocean, we work, sometimes we can find another boat, sometimes no, and everything is okay, everything is easy, every time is beauty. But when I was working with Vaquita, we need the Navy guys inside of the ships.
Mhm.
Weapons.
Yeah.
So it's a very different situation to work because this area is really complicated. And repeat again, it's not for the fishermen. It's for another people that have very different interests about the illegal commerce of the species.
Exactly. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't, I guess, see that of it. They kind of think of it as like, oh, why are the fishermen just hunting them? And it's not really the local fishermen. It's the cartels and or these illegal enterprises, we'll say. And it can get very violent and very, you know, very quick, which is why, like, you know, like when you guys are out or when Sea Shepherd's out there, they're working with the Navy, with guys with guns, you know what I mean, to be able to work in this area and all that. Is the totoba isn't used for anything in Mexico, correct? Like it's not actually utilized in Mexico?
Yeah, well, the totoba is a very, very curious history also. The totoba is an endemic species in the Gulf of California. But the question is that in Japan in China exists a very similar species some years ago. But some decades ago, this species was to the extinction. So a colony of Chinese in Mexicali, remember that exists a very similar fish here. And after of this, the population of Vaquita, because the people begin to the illegal commerce of the totoaba.
Mhm.
Totoaba can conserve because we can do it aquaculture. We can pick some animals and we can put in tanks and we can grow. And when we have conditions, we can come back to the ocean. This can work and it's working right now. We have aquaculture of totoaba in San Felipe and also in Ensenada. The question with Vaquita is very different because I said some moments ago, it's impossible to put them inside of a tank and to make some similar to the aquaculture.
No. It's such a complex situation, and you don't even know where, you know, when you start going into it and looking at it, it starts to become really clear how hard of a situation, you know, trying to save the Vaquita is, and in just on the local side of it, in the local communities and everything there, it's very difficult. Okay, so we'll go on to something a little more positive. Megan says, thank you so much for your talk. My marine biology classes from Southern California are learning about cetaceans right now, and they're actually tuning in today. They ask, what can they do to get involved with whale conservation in Mexico?
Well, in Mexico, particularly in Baja California, exists many initiatives of conservation. All the time I say that you can do, or you can use two different routes to make conservation. The first is that we can call directly. You can join a ONG organization, or you can join to the research group, or you can join to the governmental area that works directly to conservation. In Mexico, for example, CONAM, make a very, very good work to try to conserve, to care the natural resource of Mexico. So this is the directly route, I can say. But the other route that for me is really important is that be informed. For example, many people really like and really enjoy these small toys. And they want to change each year, a new cell phone, a new laptop, a new iPad, a new wherever. But use these small toys is very expensive for the nature. These small toys use very different minerals that you can find in the land or in the ocean. And for find, you need to do very aggressive activities like mine. So if we are conscious about the actions that we have a consequence in the global nature. We are in the first step to support the conservation of all the nature, also directly, but person by person. It's important, for example, that we use, if you like eat fish, well, if you take information about where the fish came. No, it's ridiculous. For example, that many people eat salmon that came from Chile, but is sold in Noruega, no, or is sold in the north of Europe. This need to trip a lot. Need to trip really, really a lot, and this implicate many emissions of the atmosphere of different gas that provoke or accelerate the global warming. So we can take many different, that looks like poor action, but in fact, if we think in the 7.5 billion of people that we are, we can understand that we can do many, many difference. So it's the thing that I can say to this question.
Awesome. Super, super cool. And like he said, Hiram said, there are a lot of initiatives and things going on in Baja, a lot of different projects, whether it be from, conservation, citizen science, research, lots of really cool things going on in this area and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But like, we tend to forget, that even simple things like that, like, paying attention to what we buy and what we use and these kind of things can also make a massive impact. And in the protection of not just whales, but in all wildlife. Cool. So we're getting tight on time, so we'll do one more question and then we'll wrap it up for today. So let's do, Alondra asks, what was the most beautiful experience you've ever had with a cetacean?
Well, when I am a bachelor student, I begin to work with cetaceans. So the first thing that I watched a whale was a breaching humpback whale. And at this moment, I begin my counting of the wonderful things. So I begin with 1, with 2, with 3. And in a moment, I lost the count because really, really, I enjoy many, many different things. I can choose only one, but I can choose many difference by species. For example, one of the most wonderful things that I never seen is that in Socorro Island, in Revillagigedo, we take a small boat, like a Zodiac boat, 4 meters only. 4 meters, a really small boat. But all days we return with the sunset. And all days we want to stay there in the night to try to follow the whales. And one day when we are arriving after of the sunset, we found a group of 20 whales fighting each another. It was really amazing because commonly in the competitive groups, only the primary escort and the challenge are fighting, and the rest are staying, only watching, or moments later they change or something. But in this group, everyone hit to everyone. It's like a dance in the rock concert. Everyone. And the night came, and the moon rise, and we can follow the whales with the moon light. So it was, for me, is one of the most wonderful experiences that I like in the ocean. But also another experience was when I first when I watch two big male killer whales hunting a calf of humpback whale, was really, really amazing to watch this behavior. And it's like it's a very, very complicated feeling, because you are happy to watch some behaviors that very few people in the world can watch, but also you can feel sad because you can watch how the small calf lose the life. But also you understand that the orcas need to eat, because if not, they died, and they also need to. So these feelings are really, really contrasting, but well, it's part of the nature. But like this, I have many, many, many stories. I enjoyed many, many moments. The first time that in Socorro Island, it's common that, well, it's common. The first time that I was in Socorro Island was in 2003. And the dolphins sometimes literally stop the small boat. They swim around the boat and they stop the boat. And well, in some of these times I go to the water, and only one dolphin, very close. And we don't know if we're more close or not, but the dolphin in a moment decided that if we don't want, he wants. And he came and literally put the head in our hands and say, so there are so many experiences that I like that are really, really amazing.
Oh, it's incredible. It's some beautiful experiences. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, man. Thank you for telling us everything and teaching us about all this stuff. It's incredible.
Well, you're welcome.
It's been an amazing day. Sorry we're going to cut and everything like that. If you guys have questions, make sure to follow Hiram on them on Facebook. His email and everything also too is in the chat and all that stuff, to keep in touch, check out what they're doing and support their work and everything. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back with Ocean Stories on Monday with to look at the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef. And tomorrow we're back with Dive Ninjas is back with doing the whale conservation course, whale defender course. So we'll have see you either over the weekend or on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend if we don't see you. Hiram, thank you so much again for coming today and chatting with us.
Thank you, Joey, for inviting me.
Awesome. Thanks for having. We'll see everybody later. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your weekends. Take care, everybody.
See you.